brought to you by War Thunder. This is me. This is Grizzly, my scientifically accurate T-Rex. And this is an island off the coast of Costa Rica, and we're here to see if a scientifically accurate T-Rex could survive Jurassic Park. First off, let's set the scene. The year is 1993. John Hammond bribes a group of scientists to visit his latest corporate endeavor and give their approval, a theme park where, through cloning and gene splicing, they've brought dinosaurs back to life. But this goes awry when a disgruntled employee sabotages the park and the dinosaurs go loose. But what if John Hammond and InGen had managed to resurrect one more dinosaur that wasn't included in the movie? What if they were able to bring back to life a 100% genetically pure and accurate Tyrannosaurus Rex, just as it was when it lived 66 million years ago? And what if it was present during this incident? Just what would happen and how would it fare against all the other dinosaurs of Isla Nublar? The first thing to address is that there's an obvious difference in behavior and temperament between wild animals and those raised in captivity. So to really show the difference between an accurate T-Rex and those resurrected by InGen, we're going to assume that Grizzly was brought back with both the genetic memory as well as its experiences from its life 66 million years ago, something much more akin to time travel as opposed to the genetic engineering we see in the movies, which is where we need to start. If InGen did bring an accurate T-Rex back, where would it be housed? Could a Tyrannosaurus Rex not just survive, but in fact thrive in a 1993 Costa Rican island? Well, let's see what the science says. T-Rex lived across western North America in a land known as Lyramidia. This ranged from the northwest, which would see snow, to the east, which housed milder and more stable climates, to the southwest, which was shaped by volcanic activity. And the difference in climate might have led to T-Rex looking slightly different depending on where it lived. If we brought back a T-Rex from the northwest, which might have been better adapted to colder climates, it might not be able to thrive as readily in Costa Rica as a T-Rex from a warmer climate. So a specimen from the east, which gives us not just the most stable known climate, but also the most studied and iconic T-Rex habitat, the Hell Creek Formation, is the best thing for us to use. And certain differences become readily apparent. Hell Creek, and in fact no part of Lyramidia, was a rainforest like Costa Rica, where the movie takes place. Contrary to popular belief, T-Rex did not live in the jungle. Instead, the Hell Creek Formation was floodplain forests and swamps, and would have likely run a bit colder. However, as long as the conditions aren't deadly, animals can usually adapt to new environments and climates. So while it may need to stay in the shade or roll around in some mud to keep cool, it shouldn't be an unmanageable change. But weather aside, there is one large problem: food, or the lack of it. If the park fails and no one is there to feed a captive T-Rex, is there enough food on Isla Nublar for T-Rex to feed itself successfully? And this is one of the times where Jurassic Park directly inspired this science. In 1997, a very serious scientific study addressed this by calculating how many lawyers it would take to properly feed a T-Rex, and the conclusion was about 292 lawyers a year. However, they used a T-Rex only weighing 4.5 tons. And Grizzly, who is based off of Scotty, the largest and most robust T-Rex specimen ever found, is estimated to weigh over twice that amount. So that figure becomes almost 600 lawyers or 90,000 pounds of meat per year. That equates to about an adult Triceratops every month. And this makes sense with the feeding habits of large predators, which typically will gorge themselves with a kill, then fast for weeks until they find their next meal. But this actually raises a problem, as there are simply no animals that are big enough in Costa Rica for T-Rex to bother hunting, meaning it would need to go hunting for the food it was bred to kill: dinosaurs. If hungry, the first thing T-Rex would likely do is avoid the dinosaurs he doesn't know and could pose a significant threat. So off the bat, Brachiosaurus is safe for now. Sauropods were gone from North America by the time T-Rex showed up, so it would have never encountered such a colossal animal. And while it definitely had the tools needed to attack, it would be easier to first find more familiar prey, which really leaves Triceratops as the only animal on Isla Nublar that T-Rex lived side by side with. But anyone who's watched the movies will know that the dinosaurs are imperfect clones. So would the Triceratops and Isla Nublar be similar enough to what T-Rex knew in the late Cretaceous for him to view them as prey? Well, for the most part, while it could be a little bit skinnier and less round, the Triceratops seen in Jurassic Park is still a pretty solid depiction of such an iconic animal, and its overall silhouette and appearance would be something that a T-Rex instinctually recognizes, and would make it a perfect candidate for when T-Rex got hungry. A Gallimimus is also something that might be quite appetizing to a T-Rex. While Gallimimus was partying it up in Mongolia while T-Rex was alive, a very close relative, Ornithomimus, lived directly with T-Rex. The main difference was that Gallimimus was the bigger brother, and this increase in size, coupled with their visual similarity, might make it an even more appetizing meal for a T-Rex. However, even an adult Gallimimus might still be too small of a meal for a fully grown adult to go after, as an Ornithomimus was a more appropriate prey item for younger, smaller T-Rexes. But if Big Daddy is hungry enough, it would more than do. And this leaves only Parasaurolophus, which also matches an animal T-Rex hunted and lived alongside, Edmontosaurus. Both are hadrosaurs or duck-billed dinosaurs because they had a duck bill, and its smaller size might make it an easier kill than Edmontosaurus, while being not too different in caloric supply, which again might make it an even more appetizing meal for the king tyrant. But if there are only a handful of herbivores present on the island, and T-Rex has to eat one large dinosaur per month, wouldn't T-Rex soon run out of food? Well, a major part of the movie and story is the folly of man trying to control nature. The animals have been bred female to prevent any unwanted reproduction, but this fails as the frog DNA used to patch up their genome was from West African frogs, which can change their sex if in a single-sex environment, and this trait is passed on to the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park. So does this mean that the herbivores will soon multiply and give T-Rex an endless food supply? Well, it doesn't really matter if they multiply or not, as it would take far too long for any hatchling to reach sexual maturity and replace the losses that a rampaging T-Rex on the loose that views them as its only viable food source would incur. So the real question becomes, did InGen make enough clones outright to sustain an adult Tyrannosaurus Rex? Well, let's investigate. An animal will typically yield around half their body weight in food, so we can actually calculate how much food total these herbivores would produce and for how long. With 2 adult Triceratops, around 23 Gallimimus, and 15 Parasaurolophus, T-Rex would only have less than about a year-and-a-half supply of viable dino meat, which means he would eventually need to turn his sight on the other inhabitants of Isla Nublar. But Brachiosaurus is many times larger than anything T-Rex ever encountered, and just like the modern giants of today, once they reached full size, sauropods would be rarely preyed upon. It's actually why they were one of, if not the most successful dinosaur groups of all time. Their sheer size alone made them incredibly formidable animals, and most carnivores opted for prey that didn't outweigh them by tenfold. But if T-Rex had no other option, how could it bring down the 50-foot giants? Well, it might want to first get some tips in war strategy by playing War Thunder, the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, where you take command of over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships from more than 10 nations, ranging from World War I biplanes all the way to the modern jet fighters and the main tanks of today. And these aren't just vehicles with hit points. Every detail has been intricately modeled to give you a way more immersive and realistic battle experience. The incredibly detailed vehicles, realistic graphics, and authentic sound effects place you right at the helm of the most powerful war machines of our time. And if you love history, you can join over 95 million players in epic PvP battles and delve into the breathtaking experience that is War Thunder. There's simply no game better suited for fans of military history, and and you can customize your machine with historic markings and community skins. And best of all, you can now play War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and mobile. Just make sure to use my links in the video description or pinned comment to sign up. If you make a new account or haven't played in 6 months, you'll also receive a massive bonus pack with lots of goodies for PC and console to give you a head start in the game. Besides 3 premium vehicles, you'll also receive a 50% experience and income booster, 2 advanced vehicles for rent, 100,000 silver lions, and 7 days of premium account time. The offer is available for a limited time only, so don't forget to claim it now. So how could it bring down the 50-foot giants? It would have to circle in on any individual with apparent weaknesses. In lieu of juveniles, that would mean old age, illness, or injury. It would try to look for the weakest link and make that its target. In Jurassic Park, we see them in herds, which would complicate things as T-Rex would need to first create enough panic to get them to separate. It could then begin its attack. A fully grown T-Rex would likely hunt like a male lion or adult Komodo dragon, as an ambush and biting predator, inflicting enough damage on the flanks or legs of their prey in order not to kill them, but to simply immobilize them. It would then feed with the animal still alive. But I really want to emphasize that any one-on-one confrontation between these animals or any fully grown sauropod with any carnivorous dinosaur would likely first end with the carnivore disengaging, or if push comes to shove, with the sauropod winning outright. They were just too large. But let's say Grizzly is an absolute stud, gets lucky, and manages to bring it down. What would follow would be a seemingly endless feast. At 56 tons of pure meat, an adult Brachiosaurus could feed T-Rex for almost an entire year. In fact, if T-Rex somehow managed to become an expert at hunting sauropods, it could live a long happy life on Isla Nublar. But again, that's not really realistic. It would either result in a failed hunt where T-Rex walks away gravely injured, or in its complete suicide. And T-Rex was much smarter than that. So if it runs out of herbivores to hunt, could Dilophosaurus or Velociraptor end up on T-Rex's menu? Well, let's start with the undersized and wildly inaccurate Dilophosaurus seen in the movie. Now, the real Dilophosaurus was actually the largest land animal in North America during its reign, being the same size as a polar bear, much bigger than the one seen in the movie, which would be completely alien to a T-Rex. Not just because Dilophosaurus died out over 100 million years before T-Rex ever showed up, but because its frill and venom were a complete work of fiction, and there is no evidence for any venomous dinosaurs at all. But we can draw some parallels to figure out how the fictional frill and its corrosive venom would fare against a king tyrant. We can see Dilophosaurus aiming for the eyes and face of Nedry, trying to blind and incapacitate its enemy, matching perfectly with how the spitting cobra uses its venom, which is intended as a deterrent against predators, not an effective hunting strategy. And this extends to its frill, which is based on that of the frilled lizard, which uses it for no defensive or offensive purpose other than to make itself appear larger and more imposing to deter potential predators or rivals, meaning that Dilophosaurus was simply protecting itself. And we can instantly see its limitations, as ultimately it's not something that Nedry isn't able to shrug off. It's not really until it manages to get into the car and presumably attacks Nedry with its actual weapons, its hands and claws, that this animal becomes deadly. But its venom might not be as effective to the heavily keratinized and armored skin on a T-Rex's face. So while it could get a lucky shot or be enough of a nuisance to Grizzly for him to leave it alone, if Grizzly was hungry enough and they came to blows, the Dilophosaurus would be outmatched by the Tyrant King. Now, even though we never see a bigger one in the flesh in the entire franchise, the one seen in the movie is meant to be a juvenile, and some retcons later on made it so there were a total of 5 Dilophosauruses on the island. But even if we use the packet given to the hunters in the Lost World to surmise the weight of an adult, all 5 of them would not beat Grizzly for a week. But what about their much larger, oversized brothers? Well, Velociraptor was also partying it up in Mongolia a few million years before T-Rex came to be, but it might actually have been a close match to the only other predator living alongside T-Rex in Hell Creek, the Achiroraptor. And before you comment, Dakotaraptor probably wasn't a real thing, but the close match would not have been with the movie version. In Jurassic Park, the Velociraptor was actually based on the bigger dromaeosaur known as Deinonychus, but labeled Velociraptor by Michael Crichton as he thought the name sounded more fierce. I have to agree with him there. But for the movie, it was scaled up even further by Steven Spielberg to again make it more imposing. The real animal was about the size of a dog, just like Accuroraptor. And although Accuroraptor was overall larger and more robust, meaning it was probably tackling larger prey items compared to Velociraptor, they would have fit a similar niche and looked somewhat similar. However, the Accuroraptor actually was likely a killer of T-Rexes, but only juveniles. When young, T-Rexes were much different from their adult counterparts. Hey guys, so I'm just wrapping up editing on the video here, and as luck would have it, news just came out that Nanotyrannus was likely a real thing. So there was another mid-sized predator in Hell Creek along with T-Rex. And actually, a lot of what I said about Accuroraptor might be better suited to Nanotyrannus, as Nanotyrannus and the Velociraptors in Jurassic Park are a much more similar size. So just keep watching the video with that in mind. Thin skulls, long limbs, somewhat proportional arms, and the light build. Things that would suit it for an entirely different way of hunting and living than its eventual form. A way of living that would have put it into conflict with the only other predator of Western North America, as they would eventually reach a similar size and build, and therefore come to compete for the same resources. And this likely resulted in older, more experienced raptors getting the upper hand on the juveniles. But the Accuroraptor stayed the size of a dog, and T-Rex not so much. After this, T-Rex seemed to have dominated the entire food chain, and the Accuroraptor was undoubtedly smart enough to avoid a fully grown T-Rex. After all, T-Rex were regularly fighting each other, and one bite from a T-Rex would inflict more damage than what even something like a Utahraptor could reliably do. So once again, Jurassic Park got it right. But just like with the Dilophosaurus, any energy lost by hunting the 3 Velociraptors would not be worth it, as at most, one adult Velociraptor would feed a T-Rex for less than 48 hours. So Grizzly would undoubtedly become the undisputed king of Isla Nublar, but unless he figures out how to hunt sauropods, it would be a short-lived reign, as it would soon succumb to starvation. But there actually is one other dinosaur that we're forgetting, and that's our favorite queen, Rexy. So how would a paleo-accurate, male, and fully grown adult T-Rex react to the queen of the dinosaurs? Well, it depends on how hungry they both are. Since this is immediately following the events of the first movie, both T-Rexes still have an ample food supply and have been well fed up to this point, so they're not going to immediately start looking for a large meal. Instead, they would begin exploring and expanding their territory, which is what we see happen in the movie. Rexy notices the electrified fences are down and immediately starts exploring. Being the largest predator on the island, it's no surprise she made it as far as the visitor center, and Grizzly would likely do the same. He would investigate the new smells and sounds he wasn't able to explore before, mark his new territory, and once it smelled Rexy, she might just get his attention. Now, just like with all the other dinosaurs in the franchise, how accurate Rexy is within canon to a real Tyrannosaurus Rex is a little up in the air. Certain inaccuracies, like its inability to see stationary objects, is stated by Dr. Alan Grant as paleontological fact, not a result of its hybrid DNA. He states this before discovering the changes that the frog's DNA is having on the dinosaur's genome. So to him at this time, this is still an accurate T-Rex. Furthermore, whether or not the deleted prologue from Jurassic World Dominion, which is meant to take place 66 million years ago, is canon or not, muddies the water a bit, as it features the Rexy design we all know and love with paleo-accurate feathers. But it also features a Giganotosaurus millions of years and thousands of miles away from where it should be. So it seems this is still meant to be an animal that should be somewhat indistinguishable from the real thing, which means Grizzly would likely still register it as such, and since they wouldn't be immediately starting for food, Grizzly might have another idea. So what did T-Rex Riz look like? Off the bat, I'm sorry to say, but T-Rex and most theropods would not be trying to do any elaborate dances like birds of paradise. These are simply not seen in reptiles or modern predatory birds, the two closest living relatives to T-Rex. But why? simply because the females are much more concerned with how well they can hunt and not with how showy they are. So appropriately, predatory bird courtship is much more focused on displays of flying and hunting ability. But this is so entrenched with flying, it's likely not the best analog for the land-bound king and queen tyrant. Instead, crocodilians and monitor lizards might give us the best insight into how T-Rex will be trying to rizz up the muzzies. Crocodilians do this by producing deep bellows and sounds that can show their size and fitness to females. They might chase off rivals and try to engage in behavior that shows their strength and dominance. When a female is receptive, they then proceed to engage in surprisingly gentle facial and body contact. And Komodo dragons will do something very similar. So a mixture of this is what Grizzly might do to try and impress Rexy. If in mating season and if receptive, which let's be honest, who wouldn't be receptive to that face, Rexy would accept by allowing for gentle body and facial contact before mating. But they're still on the clock to find food, and with 2 adult T-Rexes needing to eat, along with their incoming young, that means the available food source would whittle down even quicker. But could their unison actually help them with the problem? One T-Rex hunting a Brachiosaurus might be suicide, but what about 2 of them? Could they not work together to bring down the much bigger prey? Modern media has reliably shown T-Rex as a social and at times family or pack hunting animal. This is due to some fossil sites like the one Sue was found in, producing more than 1 T-Rex specimen at a time, suggesting multiple individuals were living and dying together. But the science isn't as definitive. It is not rare to see reptiles and predatory birds hunting together in the same place. But unlike lions or other mammals that can work together to subdue a larger individual, reptiles and birds still only pursue prey that one individual alone could hunt, and do not coordinate their attacks in any meaningful way. So if one T-Rex couldn't hunt down a Brachiosaurus, it seems unlikely that they would try it as a team, much less as a family. So we and them are stuck in the same place. But Jurassic Park isn't just Isla Nublar. In fact, there are 5 other islands nearby that are all owned by InGen. The largest of which, Isla Sorna, otherwise known as Side B, is only 140 kilometers away. And any fan will know that Side B is not only where they keep all the top secret dinos, but where they've been let loose and are thriving in large numbers across the island. Is there any chance that Isla Sorna could be the saving grace for our soon-to-be starving T-Rexes? Well, T-Rex had an incredible sense of smell, which we're able to tell from its large nasal cavity and huge olfactory bulbs. This, coupled with its excellent vision, made it a skillful hunter and predator that was able to detect prey from several kilometers away. However, even if we're generous and give its senses comparable or greater than those of the best modern predators, at most it might be able to detect the general coastline and shore if wind conditions were perfect, but not individual dinosaurs. It wouldn't be able to know prey was across the water. Well, let's say it was starving and the thought entered its head. Could a T-Rex make the swim? Well, Komodo dragons are known for being very capable swimmers, swimming to new islands when food and resources on their home island become scarce. Their long, large bodies filled with air allow them to easily float, and their limbs and tails serve as effective tools for propulsion, and T-Rex was no different. Studies have looked at the body plan of T-Rex and concluded that floating and swimming would have been no problem. Its long, strong legs would be great for propelling itself. But monitor lizards are known for swimming hundreds of meters at a time, maybe a few kilometers at most, and this applies to most terrestrial predators. The only land predator that has been recorded swimming tens to hundreds of kilometers at a time is the polar bear, an animal adapted to hunting marine life, unlike T-Rex. It's simply not believable that T-Rex could manage a 100+ kilometer swim. So is it truly over for T-Rex? Realistically, yes. Unable to detect appropriate prey on the neighboring islands, coupled with an inability to make such a long swim, would mean that T-Rex has to resign to its fate. It will likely perish trying to hunt a Brachiosaurus or end up cannibalizing its family and eventually succumbing to starvation. But just like nature seldom is, that's no fun. And although this would be really impossible, there is a scenario where T-Rex can make the swim. But I want to make sure that everyone knows this is the 1 in a million scenario and in no way realistic. It's like planning to get rich by winning the Powerball. It would rely on a miracle. with everything that could possibly go right going incredibly right. But nature can always be surprising, so this is how it could play out. T-Rex has caused a near extinction on Isla Nublar. Driven by hunger, it starts to scout the coast, its nose getting a whiff of Sorna's coastline 140 kilometers away. Desperate for food, it decides to trust its instinct and follow its nose. Now, even in our 1 in a million scenario, 140 kilometers is probably still too much for even the most athletic of T-Rexes to swim in one go. So it would need to rest from its swim by finding driftwood or raft debris. Considering this is immediately following a hurricane, storm-driven driftwood and debris might actually be abundant in the surrounding area. And hurricanes can cause strong currents that, if right, could help drift Grizzly where it needs to go. The closest body of land is Isla Peña. Once it lands here, it could explore the island, get some easy kills, and then it would have a relatively easy time island hopping to eventually land on Isla Sorna. It would be exhausted, starving, and near death, but once here, he can regain his strength, and with an entire island populated by dinosaurs to feed off of, he'd once again come to full power, which is where we're going to leave our accurate Tyrannosaurus Rex. He not only survived Jurassic Park, but now he has a place to roam without electric fences, with enough food to keep his belly full, and has found a new kingdom to rule over. Although it does come with some opposition, but I think that topic requires its own video. Make sure to check out today's sponsor, War Thunder, to blow up some tanks. You can check it out for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or on mobile, and use my links in the pinned comment or video description to register. Those of you who are new or haven't played for 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across PC and console, including multiple premium vehicles and more. So go check it out now. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out what a realistic T-Rex fight would actually look like, check out my last video, and I'll see you guys again very soon.